Hi folks, Rudy here again at Claude and Painting Studio. This is our next part of our Box to Battlefield Hobby Basics tutorials with the Perry 1812 to 1815 Napoleonic French. Last video we looked at painting techniques, went over overbrushing, putting in base coats, dry brushing, washing and highlighting. And in this video we're going to concentrate more on the campaign dress or the uniform that some of our soldiers in this box wear. We're going to look particularly at the grenadiers and voltigeurs, the flank companies. Bit of extra detail on these models to take care of. So when putting these together, the important thing is to look for the sort of thistle-shaped pom-poms, the epaulettes. These are your flank companies, and that means when selecting backpacks, you want the one with the short swords that are hanging from them. These ones aren't wearing greatcoats, so need to look out the packs that have the greatcoat roll along the top. Our uniform consists of the jacket and the overalls, or trousers you might want to call them, and there's a bit more detail on these than the great-coated fusiliers we painted last time, so we'll look at these details as we go. The vast majority of the model is going to be an off-white colour in this case. Overalls, cross straps, front of the vest, the lapels there, as well as on the backpack strap on the musket. So overbrushing with Vallejo off-white is where we're going to start. I'm not going to talk through these techniques too much this time, but the last video will have information on the different techniques. So although we've pointed out the areas that will finish up white, we are going to give the whole model an overbrush, and this will help with the later colours in giving them highlights and shading. The off-white is going to lie on the upward facing edges, and when we put a paint over them it will be lighter in those areas than it will where the grey primer is still showing. So we'll pick up again after a couple of coats of off-white over the whole model. Got some Vallejo model colour black grey, and we've got boots to do, shako, avoiding the pom-pom and also the two bands top and bottom. We do have the peak to pick out, and on the reverse the cartridge box, sheaths for the bayonet and the short sword, our boots. And I may have cut it off when I did it first time, so I'll just show you on the back. We're just doing the centre portion of the shako, leaving the bands at the top. The top of the shako should be black grey as well. So now the black grey has been done, we're going to look at Vallejo model colour Prussian blue and use that for the jackets. Really, we have the sleeves to worry about and not a whole lot else. The cuffs have a flap, and that would be blue in the centre there. Fill in a sleeve. There's a little space around the strap on some of the models, and a smaller brush might be more appropriate here. Add a little bit in there. At the back of the model Got our little rolled up cap to pick out. Under the sleeves, yes, there is a little bit of exposed jacket, and you do have a white turn back with a little bit of blue down the side. But these areas are quite difficult to get to, and unless somebody's picking the model up to inspect it this close, they're not going to be noticed. So I would just concentrate on getting the sleeves done okay, and possibly get a smaller brush to get into the gaps around the straps. Try and leave the cuff itself white for now. We'll pick up our brush and move on to Army Painter Tanned Flesh for the skin. Not a whole lot to consider really, hands and faces. With the flesh painted, we're going to use some Vallejo Model Colour Flat Brown to pick out the wood of the musket, any gourds that are hanging from the cross straps, moustaches, sideburns and hair, and the pack. Do that cowhide pattern I showed in the last video. Just a few random blobs of the brown give the impression that this came from a cow with a patterned skin. After we've painted in the brown, I've got a quick job on the back of the pack. We have our rolled greatcoat. So I have some Vallejo Model Colour Light Grey. If you're using the core paints I've suggested, you could also mix your grey with a bit of brown, or perhaps the brown with the Elfic flesh, the warm off-white, and that would just give you a little bit of variation. And that's true of greatcoats that the troops are wearing, if you wanted to add a bit of variety to the ranks. So I've got some Army Painter Pure Red as our next colour. This is going to be a bit different between the Grenadiers and the voltigeurs. For the Grenadiers, the pom-pom, the band at the top of the shako and band at the bottom of the shako, as well as collar, epaulets, cuffs, leaving a line of white at the top if possible, around the edge of the lapels, some red piping there, our sword knot. The voltigeurs, a little bit different. We are going to paint the cuffs red, and again our piping. However, the collar will be yellow, as will the pom-pom. Epaulets will be green, as will the sword knot. One additional detail you may want to pick out in red on the Grenadier is the strap running across the chest, which goes down to the gourd or whatever else is hanging from the belt, and you can pick that out in green on the voltigeur. Okay, I have been jumping the gun a bit, and I have gone ahead and painted on the yellow and green on the voltigeurs. The yellow is Vallejo Game Extra Opaque Heavy Ochre, and the green is Vallejo Model Colour Deep Green. Worth noting perhaps that on voltigeurs the pom-poms could be a combination of yellow and green, yellow and red even. Same with the epaulets, usually fringes were green, but on top could be yellow or red. It's just simpler just to do it all in green. So a bit of cuff detail. And we have some red running up the rear of the cuff flap, but I've left the front with white and white piping around the top of the cuff. There was a bit of variation on cuff flaps, but I find this is a fairly straightforward way to do it. We're going to do a bit of dry brushing with some Elfic flesh to pick out the raised details, especially around about the areas we've painted dark grey, such as the shackle, also the face as well, and knuckles. That will just help to bring out some of the raised points there. Last bit of painting before we use our wash is to pick out the metallics. I've got some Vallejo model colour brass. I've got chin straps which have been folded up. There's a plate on front of the shackle here as well. Buttons, both on the front of the vest and also on the cuffs. And on the rear, the end of the scabbard, bayonet sheath and short sword. Now the last colour after the brass is some Army Painter plate mail metal, and we've got the musket barrel and bayonet to pick out. With the metallics now dry, it's time to enhance the shadows and create some black lining effects around the different materials, and we're going to do that with some Army Painter dark tone. I have mixed it in a 2:1 ratio with some Army Painter Quickshade mixing medium. Apply this liberally over the whole model, and if anything starts to pull too much, such as around the hand here, we'll just brush it away, move it around with the bristles on the brush. This will need about 30 minutes to set after it's applied. The wash is dry, and it's really helped to pick out all the nice folds that are sculpted into the overalls, and do some black lining around the straps. We could call the miniatures finished here, but some highlighting is probably appropriate, just a couple of minutes per model to really bring things to life. You could go back to the base colours and go over the raised areas on everything, but I think it's a couple of colours to really concentrate on, bringing that off-white back up, especially over the knees, a little bit of the straps to be picked out as well, and straps on the pack at the back, and the other area would be the skin. So a bit of dry brushing is probably the quickest, simplest way to pick out the raised folds over the knees, for example. Dry brushing is probably too inaccurate for the straps, so paint on a narrow brush. I'm not repainting the whole thing, just picking out a couple of key areas where we'd have the light falling. So with the straps picked out, we'll pick out a bit of raised detail on the flesh. I've mixed a bit of the tanned flesh with some of the Elfic flesh, and just pick out cheekbones and knuckles and noses where they're going to catch that extra bit of light. And here we have them. So hopefully a fairly easy to follow guide to painting your grenadiers and voltigeurs. A couple of key differences really around colour for the collar, pom-poms, epaulets. I will bring in some Fusiliers who are in this campaign dress as well. So like the grenadiers, they have red collars. Cuffs are the same. Pom-poms are in company colours. I have gone out with my 13 core colours to get a green, a sort of peach and violet, but you could mix these from the suggested colours. Back of the models, a little bit different. No swords, so you can see the back of the jacket, so blue with white turnbacks. There are some buttons there and a little bit of red piping if you really want to go to that detail, but not necessary in the main. So please leave any comments below, and there'll be another video coming up fairly soon, beginning to look at some of the multi-part models in the kit, potential for conversions, and also a bit of focus on the command models, so officer, eagle bearer and drummer. Thanks for watching.